I responded to something. I responded to something, and I responded to it, you know.
Never gonna dance again. Guilty feet have got no rhythm.
It was more than just a lyric. For millions, it was George Michael's haunting confession wrapped in silk vocals, echoing from car radios, stadiums, and shattered hearts alike. But behind the neon lights, chart-topping bangers, and perfectly tousled hair, there was a storm quietly brewing. A storm they didn't want you to see. Was George Michael just the angelic-voiced pop idol who gave us joy in the 80s and 90s? Or was he a complicated soul wrestling with grief, secrets, and a system that tried to control him? Brace yourselves, because what you're about to hear isn't just the story of a superstar. It's a tale of private demons, public defiance, and unverified rumors that still swirl around his legacy today. From whispered scandals to quiet acts of charity, from heartbreaks behind studio doors to a death that stunned the world, this is the full truth, and the sad one, about the life of George Michael. Welcome to Retro Waves. Let's rewind the tape. Before the scandals, the Grammys, and the glossy music videos, there was just a kid named Georgios Kyriakos Panayotou, born on June 25, 1963, in East Finchley, London. A shy child with dark curls and a voice that seemed too big for the room. He didn't just fall in love with music, he seemed to be made of it. Surrounded by the buzz of London life and the warmth of his Cypriot heritage, George Michael's destiny was being quietly composed, chord by chord. And then fate intervened, in the most British of places, a high school classroom. That's where George met Andrew Ridgeley, the effortlessly cool, popular dreamboat who seemed like his total opposite. But together, magic. They bonded over a shared obsession with pop music and dreams far bigger than their small town could handle. From that chemistry, Wham was born.
Moving tide, we'll go dancing tomorrow night. It's cold out there.
And in true underdog fashion, their early attempts at forming a ska band, ironically called The Executive, flopped harder than a forgotten TikTok dance. But every icon needs an origin story, right? Some unverified whispers from the time claimed that George, at first, didn't quite fit the mold of a star. He was said to be awkward, carrying some extra weight, and living in Andrew's shadow. Meanwhile, Andrew was painted as the confident jock type, the kind who glided through teenage years like a pop music prince. But George had something Andrew didn't. A raw, aching need to express something deeper. And that difference? It would eventually become his superpower. By 1982, their persistence paid off. They landed a record deal, and with that, the Wham explosion began. Their debut album, Fantastic, didn't just make noise in the UK. It set off fireworks. And across the Atlantic? When they hit the US, they didn't just arrive, they stormed in like a synth-pop hurricane. The world wasn't ready for Wham, but Wham was more than ready for the world. With their boyish good looks, upbeat sound, and that unapologetic joy in their music, they weren't just artists, they were a movement. 1984 brought their second album, Make It Big, and that title wasn't just clever marketing. It was a prophecy fulfilled. Wake Me Up Before You Go Go rocketed to #1 in the US.
Before you go, don't leave me hanging on like a yo-yo. Wake me up.
And suddenly, every teenager from London to Los Angeles was decked out in Choose Life shirts, short shorts, and neon brighter than Times Square. George's voice, soulful, confident, unmistakable, took center stage. Even though Wham was still a duo, fans and critics alike began to notice. This wasn't just a pop group. This was George Michael's vehicle, and it was speeding toward stardom. Careless Whisper released under the Wham name, but essentially a solo track, proved George could captivate alone. And when Everything She Wants also hit #1, it was clear. George Michael wasn't just delivering pop hits. He was sculpting modern pop itself. And yet, beneath the booming beats and global fame, George stayed grounded, at least for a while. In 1984, he joined the iconic Band Aid single Do They Know It's Christmas, showing the world that pop stars could be principled. He and Andrew even donated the royalties from Last Christmas and Everything She Wants to Ethiopian famine relief. Then came 1985, the year Wham broke history as the first Western pop act to perform in China. And when George stood beside Elton John at Live Aid to perform Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me, fans didn't just get chills, they got a glimpse of a legend in the making. After Wham's farewell in 1986, George was finally ready to take the spotlight alone. His first solo release post-Wham, a Grammy-winning duet with none other than the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me. That's what you call an entrance. Then came Faith, an album that didn't just break records, it blew them to pieces. Released in 1987, it revealed a whole new George, leather jacket, sunglasses, stubble, and a whole lot of heat. He dove headfirst into R&B and funk, delivering smash hits like Father Figure, Monkey, and One More Try. But it was I Want Your Sex that sparked flames, literally. The title alone caused U.S. radio stations to panic. Many refused to play it during daylight hours, clutching their pearls over what they saw as scandalous content. Still, the world couldn't resist. Faith sold over 25 million copies globally and won the Grammy for Album of the Year in 1988. Scandal, it turns out, was good for business. Then came 1998, Beverly Hills, a public restroom, and a tabloid explosion that echoed around the globe. George Michael was arrested for lewd conduct.
Code engaging in a lewd act. The arrest was made by members of the Crime Suppression Unit.
An incident that triggered a media circus and, for many, shattered his carefully curated image. But instead of hiding, George stepped forward. He came out publicly as gay, a move that shocked some but liberated many. He later admitted that the songs he had written when dating women were truly about women, but the songs since had clearly been about men. It was a declaration not of shame, but of truth. And though some corners of the world tried to shame him, George took that moment and turned it into something powerful. He refused to be defined by scandal. Instead, he owned his identity with grace and defiance. Behind all the glitter, George Michael carried deep personal wounds. In 1997, he lost his beloved mother, Leslie, to cancer. He admitted it was the darkest period of his life. The depression was so severe that he confessed he came close to losing the will to live. George also spoke candidly about his mother's fears for his safety as a gay man and her misplaced guilt, thinking she may have passed on a gay gene. One particularly heartbreaking and unverified rumor surrounded George's maternal uncle. He claimed in interviews that his mother found her brother deceased shortly after George was born, initially believed to be an accident. But later speculation pointed toward suicide. George feared inheriting mental illness, particularly schizophrenia, a fear that inspired his haunting track, My Mother Had a Brother. Again, while touching, this part of his family story remains unverified, yet the emotional truth behind it is undeniable. In 1992, George released the sizzling single Too Funky with a fashion-fueled music video that was originally meant to be directed by legendary designer Thierry Mugler. But here's where another unverified claim ignites the drama. Sources allege that George and Mugler clashed so intensely during filming that Mugler stormed off the project, furious. In the final cut, the video credits the director with only a giant question mark, a fashion feud immortalized on MTV. That same year, George declared war on his own record label, Sony Music. He filed a lawsuit accusing them of treating him like property, forcing him into a suffocating contract that demanded 6 more albums. He lost the legal battle. But what he gained was respect. Long before Taylor Swift's Masters battle, George Michael was already fighting for artist rights and creative freedom. After years of turbulence, George returned with the 25 Greatest Hits collection in the mid-2000s, sparking a comeback tour that sold out around the globe. His voice, still powerful, his stage presence, undeniable. His fans, still devoted. But on December 25th, 2016, the world awoke to devastating news. George Michael had died in his sleep at the age of 53.
His publicist has said he passed away peacefully at home.
His cause of death was confirmed to be natural, dilated cardiomyopathy with myocarditis and a fatty liver. He was found by his partner at their home in Goring-on-Thames, Oxfordshire. The news stunned millions. The man who gave us faith, freedom, and fast love was gone. At the time of his passing, George Michael's estate was valued at over $100 million, though some unverified reports pushed that figure closer to $200 million. He had built an empire through sheer talent, smart investments, and relentless work. But more than the money, it was his soul that left a legacy. He was a man of contradictions, a global megastar with crushing insecurities, a sex symbol who struggled with isolation, an icon of freedom who battled restrictions, and in the shadows, he gave, quietly, generously. Reports after his death revealed he had donated millions, often anonymously, to causes like AIDS research, children's hospitals, and homelessness. So, how do we remember George Michael? Not just as the man with the golden voice, not just the pop star in sunglasses and leather, but as an artist who wasn't afraid to tell the truth, even when it hurt. A man who turned pain into poetry, who sang for the misunderstood, the marginalized, and the brokenhearted. George Michael was, and will always be, more than a pop star. He was a beacon, he was a fighter, he was freedom. So raise a glass, press play on Father Figure, and remember the man who gave us everything until the very end. Undeniably, unforgettably, George